we go. Oh, I can see people. I can see you. Hi. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Krista. How's it going? How you doing? How's life? Okay, I feel a little silly now. But anyways, technology's working. Yay! All right, so we are beginning day 1 of descending into shadow work. This is going to be a mini course just to give you kind of a surface level view of what we're going to be diving into next month for the month of October. October 16th with the new moon will be the day that we launch this course. I wanted to give everybody an opportunity, give them a whole month in between so that they can really kind of digest what we're going to talk about here today and in the next 2 days and really feel and breathe and embody the moment and feel present in themselves. Because I know that the transformation that's coming with this is going to take a little bit of time and energy for us all to be able to process it. So, what is shadow work? If you've been in the spiritual community for any length of time, you've probably seen the word shadow work come up quite a bit and wondered what the heck is it, but nobody really talks about it. It's kind of one of those, I don't want to say it's a hipster term, but I definitely feel like shadow work has become very popular in the last 2-3 years. I'm seeing it a lot more online, and I know all of you are too. So let's talk about it. What does shadow work mean to you? Pop a comment down below. I'll give you guys just a couple minutes. I know that there's going to be a slower lag time, so when you think of the word shadow work, even if you're on the replay, I want you to put in the comments below, what do you feel shadow work means to you? Does it feel scary? Does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel dark? Does it feel dangerous? When you hear the word shadow work, what does it bring up for you? Let me know. I'm kind of curious. Shadow work represents the inner trauma, the inner junk that we have to deal with that's not always pleasant. It's the darker side of our life lessons, our journey through this world. There's very triggering words that come up with shadow work, words like trauma, words like pain, words like trauma, pain, discomfort, diseasement. Areas of our body when we think of the shadow, when we think of the mothering wound, right? Tapping into trauma. So when we think of the mothering wound, I know that there are many of us in this group that are motherless daughters. So let's kind of go over this just a little bit, and I want to use this as a really good example of what it means when we're talking about shadow work. When we think about it, I want you to close your eyes for a minute, if it's safe to do so, providing you're not operating any heavy machinery or doing anything that requires you to keep your eyes open. Just take a moment and take a breath. Feel that synergy in your lungs. Feel it jittering down your spine and in your back. When you think of your childhood, when you think of the way that you were raised, your upbringing, what was some of the language that was used around your childhood? Was there topics that came up that were scarcity? And this doesn't have to necessarily fall under the line of trauma. Let's talk about scarcity first. Was money tight growing up? What was some of the language that your parents used around money? What did they teach you about money? Was money something that flowed freely? Was money considered energy, where it came to you freely like water and left just as quickly? Or left at a comfortable speed? Was it like an overflowing faucet, more and more and more, and it was comfortable? Or were things kind of tight? Was money something that you feared? Money was something that you had to work really, really, really hard for in hopes of gaining just a little bit and barely scraping by each month. Right? What was some of the language around that? What was food like? What were the conversations you guys had around dinner time? What were some of the conversations that you had around dating, sexuality. Ooh, this is where it's getting deeper. You can feel it in your body, right? Now, let's go a little bit deeper today. Okay, I want you to trust me. Feel your breath. What was the conversation that you had around the topic of masturbation or sex education with your parents? Was there any topic? Was there any conversations around it? How were your sexual organs referred to? Boobs, breast, nipples, vagina, like penis? What was some of the language like, and what were some of the conversations around the first time you were caught masturbating? That is a really huge one in shadow work, especially when it comes to sexual magic. And here's why I say this. If you were taught that masturbation is bad, is dirty, or is wrong, or is something you should not be doing, you should not be touching your body, that created a body trauma. That created a diseasement inside of you. And that will prohibit you from being able to fully experience an orgasm. Does that make sense? When you think about it, those deeply rooted subconscious codes that are anchored into your body from your childhood experiences, that was something that was dirty. That was something that shouldn't have been done. That was something that we should not talk about. That's something that's private. That's something you only do when you've reached XYZ. Those are all anchoring language that goes deep inside of our body. It goes deep inside of our muscles. It goes deep inside of our subconscious programming. And when we experience those at such a young age, they add layers to our being. And as we grow up, and as we go out into the world and become young people, young adults, and we start experimenting with our sexuality, we start experimenting with our body and understanding what sexual pleasure means, what feels safe, what makes me feel loved, what makes me feel appreciated. Do I need approval? Do I crave approval? Do I need everybody to like me? What happens when people don't like me and they reject me? You can feel the heaviness in this, right? I know you can. You can feel it back here in the back. There's issues all throughout the body that pile up and that start to swirl throughout, and you start tapping into, there's different parts of your body that feel empty. They feel they haven't had the opportunity to release, to be acknowledged, to process. When you're feeling this, I know you feel it. This is what shadow work means. When we're talking about shadow work, when it comes to sex magic, when it comes to personal empowerment, personal development, personal growth, this is the work. This is being able to feel those anchors in the body that kind of are tender. Some of them kind of hurt. Some of them make us feel very uncomfortable. And when we are able to reach a space where we feel safe, where we feel that we can grow, something shifts for us internally. Something shifts for us in our mind. Something shifts for us in our body. Something shifts in our energy. And something shifts in our spirituality. Something shifts in our sexual pleasure and being able to experience that. Now, as someone who was a motherless daughter, I can completely attest. My entire root chakra area was numb. My sacred chakra, my root chakra, everything pretty much from the solar plex down was completely shut off and numb before I started doing my own personal journey into shadow work. I would have areas of my body. For example, whenever I would think of what my childhood was like with my mother, I would get pain in my left ovary. Now, understanding that typically the left side of the body represents feminine energy, and the right side of the body represents masculine energy. When we think about this and we think about the areas of our body that are experiencing trauma or that are experiencing that sense of diseasement, not a disease, but a diseasement where they're stiff, there's discomfort, there's something about it that can't quite be explained, but we know that the sensation that we're experiencing, and we're not able to activate our throat chakra to say this is what it is, or to be able to effectively communicate, I'm going through this and I need help. For me, I had an ovarian cyst that had ruptured on my left side. I had spent 4 days in the hospital. I went through a lot with that. I've also experienced pain in my left leg, down in my knees, down in my ankles, and these are just anchoring points for me. There's a certain anchor in my body that I've had since I was a child. And when I was very, very young, my mother taught me how to put an anchor in. Well, she didn't teach me how to put the anchor in. She showed me how the anchor was put into me without consent. And she showed me how to access it. So if I were to close my eyes and take a breath, I can drop my hand down to that anchoring spot on my body and I can push into it for 3 seconds. And as I push into it for 3 seconds, it creates an energetic cord that pushes that energy to my mother so that wherever I'm at in the world, she can feel that I need her and that I need to talk to her. This happened at a very young age. And when we work with meridian lines, when we work with our shadow, when we work with EFT tapping, and we work with anchoring, these are some of the techniques that I will be teaching you next month inside of the Descending into Shadow work. We have to work through the darkness and the shadowy parts. We have to be able to acknowledge what's coming up for us so that we're able to move past that mindset of being in a scarcity mentality and move forward into a place of abundance and thriving. Does this make sense? Do any of you have any questions so far? I realize I kind of veered off a little bit, but I really wanted to dig deep into personal experiences and share examples so that this really made sense of what shadow work represents. Because I know that there's several, if you go and you look on the internet, everybody has an opinion and it's kind of overwhelming at times. So I wanted this to be very, very authentic and organic so that as I'm describing how this felt for me, there are going to be some similarities for you. And maybe it's not exactly the same, right? Maybe you don't have pain in your left ovary. Maybe you're not a motherless daughter. Maybe you're a fatherless son. Maybe it wasn't anything to do with either parent. Maybe there was abuse in your past. Maybe there was abuse from a family member or someone who was close to your family, a loved one, someone who betrayed you. All of these come up. These trauma points come up in our body and they create energetic blocks within us. And when we work through those energetic blocks, it opens up a world of possibility for us so that we can move freely from a place of being scared and feared and uncomfortable into moving into a space of pleasure and joy and satisfaction and sexual bliss, orgasmic sexual bliss. But we have to do the tough part of it. We have to work through the mud and the sludge and the things that make us really uncomfortable so that we can reach that growth and expansion to really effectively practice sexual magic, to practice sexual healing, sexual growth, and sexual empowerment. All of those words mean nothing if we don't start at the very basics and the foundational layers of descending into our shadow work first. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Does anyone have any questions for me so far before I go on to the next little section that I have for this?